Very much for everyone for attending this event on a Friday afternoon. So Yike and I, we will first of all want to express our gratitude for LRC for funding this project. This has been ongoing, and we might wanted to expand this to other chapters of the same textbook as well, because this is kind of just the initial stage of development for our currently used textbook for intermediate Chinese. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start our presentation. All right, can you see my, okay, great. Yes. So Yike and I were both teaching second year, which is intermediate Chinese level. Here is the outline of our presentation. It will be 3 parts. So these time are just like approximate. So if we go over, if we can end the presentation earlier, then we can have more time for discussion, and that would be great too. So for part 1, I'm going to start to introducing the theoretical framework of our project. And part 2, I think Yike will most introducing that part, especially the most labor intensive part of our project, which is creating original video clips for as a supplementary input material for our textbook. And part 3 will be the Q&A and discussions. So any questions are welcome, and criticism too. So I'll start with the theoretical framework. I'll keep this as short as possible, since I believe that we're all experts in this area. I just kind of remind everyone about some of the second language acquisition theories, and also theoretical hypotheses that is in support of using or like in support of like or discussing of what kind of input are more or less facilitative for language learning. All right, so I'll start with the I+1 as one of the earliest second language acquisition. I'm sorry. Well, I'll start with the input in general in second language acquisition. So input refers to the language that learners are exposed to in the environment, as Gass and Mackey mentioned beautifully. Outline input is the sine qua non of language acquisition, which means without the primary linguistic data available to the learners in the environment, language learning cannot possibly begin. However, all inputs are not created equal. Some are more or less facilitative of L2 acquisition than others. So here, when we talk about input, we refer to 2 kinds of. There are naturalistic input. There are non-naturalistic input. As a matter of fact, in foreign language learning scenario context, most of our input are actually non-naturalistic input, meaning they are revised. Most of them are pedagogical input in artificial settings. I+1 is the theory comprehensible input hypothesis that we're all familiar with. Krashen championed that, which argues that acquisition occurs when one exposed to language that is comprehensible. The I represent the level of language that's learners already acquired, and the plus is a metaphor for language such as words, grammatical features, and sounds that is just one step beyond that level. And of course, the strong position of I+1 comprehensible input hypothesis may not necessarily hold water, but then it still highlights the importance of input. Input alone may not necessarily complete acquisition, but it's definitely the essential starting point. The more dominant current theory, usage-based theory, a more generic framework for SOA, argues that everything the learner needs is contained in the input data. There's no innate knowledge system that interacts with the data. Grammar emerges over time, where the brain processes and tallies linguistic information in the input. The third and last theoretical framework that we want to draw upon is Han's selective fossilization hypothesis, which argues that the learnability of a particular L2 grammar feature depends largely on the status of L1 counterpart of the L2 feature, which can be marked or unmarked, and the nature of the L2 input, which can be robust or non-robust. The theory itself is quite complicated, and it's about generic framework for second language acquisition. But then I want to just highlight the takeaway for our project, which is L2 input is consistent, robust, if it is frequent and consistent, which means that it's this type of L2 data, L2 input that we are aiming to create for our learners. So it needs to be frequent. It also needs to be consistent. Okay. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about the limitation of the classroom input in our context and types of supplementary input and evaluation criteria before I hand the presentation over to my coworker, Ike. For learners in foreign language contexts where naturalistic L2 input is impoverished, textbooks are one of the most important sources of input. Textbooks and also the teacher talk. However, textbook alone is not enough. Many language teachers resort to the internet to search for quality input online to enrich the classroom learning. This might be a great idea for more advanced learners. However, the problem for our context in particular is that most input material found online could not be used for classroom teaching directly, especially for beginners and intermediate level learners. As you can see that most of the input, if we directly get it from internet, are not comprehensible for our learners. So here I would just quickly define what's comprehensibility later. So here are the 4 types of supplementary input that we aim to create for our learners. So for each chapter, we will write a script based on the textbook characters and shoot a video clips ourselves. And we will search online video clips and transform them, adding subtitles, trimming into comprehensible input for intermediate learners. The third type is to create original reading comprehension material based on the topics of the chapters. Or we can search online materials for relevant context, such as news, discussion, social media posts, commercials, and revise them. So basically, for each chapter, we will have 2 types that are original and input. One is AV, another is in the form of reading comprehension. And then the other 2 are basically, we revise instead of creating the original materials. And today, I think most of when we're introducing our material, we're going to focus on the first one, which is the most labor intensive. So we come up with this set of criteria based on the theories, based on what the theory has pointing as robust input, as good input for our learners, facilitated for learning. So we having comprehensible input. So basically comprehensible input, research has shown that if the input, the new words contained or unknown words contained in the input is less than 5%, then this part of the input material is considered comprehensible. So we're going to be using 5% as the benchmark for comprehensible input. It needs to be authentic, which means that, yes, we understand it's artificial, it's pedagogical, it's revised, but it still should sound very authentic, not just simplified language materials for our learners, because simplification might be helping with comprehensibility, but sometimes simplification may not necessarily aid acquisition. And the input needs to be robust, which means frequency needs to be frequent. So if there's a language particular word we want learners to acquire, then we'll want to improve the frequency, and needs to be consistent, which is defined in terms of variability. Hopefully the linguistic features is less variable. It's every time it shows, it should meaning the same thing. And the last one is equivalent to certain standards. Here we're talking about context and level appropriate. So these, whatever materials we're creating, should be similar to the topics that's covered in the textbook, but not 100% identical to that. Otherwise, it will just to kind of like enriching, to kind of improve the diversity of the language materials that learners are exposed to. But it should be equivalent to certain standards. So here we're using our textbook instead of some generic standards such as HSK. For this project, again, this is a pilot study. So we wanted a pilot project. So we wanted to testing out whether this will work, and we'll report our results. Now I'm going to hand the presentation over to my coworker, Ike. Ike is the one who's directing this particular part of the project to creating the original video clip, and he's an expert on it with a lot of experiences. So I'm going to stop sharing and then let Ike take over.
All right, so let me share my screen. All right, so before my presentation, I'd like to play a video that we have created and show you what we have done. After the video finishes, I'll begin my explanation. And this video is about online shopping in China.
现在在网络上买东西的中国人越来越多了。如果你饿了，只要打开手机，就能在家买到你想吃的东西，不用自己去超市，外卖员会帮你把东西买好，然后送到你家。所以在中国上网买东西很方便，只要有网络，随时随地都可以买到你喜欢的东西。中国人一般喜欢在淘宝上买东西，因为在淘宝上买东西很方便，他们的东西常常打折，不但便宜，种类也很多。中国人喜欢双11的时候买东西，每年的11月11号，淘宝和京东都有大减价，东西便宜的不得了。大家会在这天上网买很多很多东西，好像东西不要钱似的。所以双11就是中国的黑色星期五。这一天，网上的很多东西都会打折，有的东西打8折，有的东西打7折。不管是手机、电脑，还是冰箱、空调，你想要的一切几乎都能在网上买到。虽然不能讨价还价，可是还是能省很多钱。11月11号，我买了一个书包，一盏台灯，一个书桌，一个空调，一个冰箱，一盒茶叶，一个笔记本电脑，一个手机，还办了一张手机卡。不打折的时候，电脑贵得不得了，一台最少也要1万块。可是11月11号，电脑打9折，一下子可以省1000块钱。不过网上的东西也不全打折，有时还会变贵。但是这种事儿不常发生。在中国的时候，要是你想在网上买东西，我推荐你上淘宝或京东。
All right. Earlier, my colleague mentioned the concept of authenticity. Authenticity, we believe, encompasses two linguistic and factual dimensions. On linguistic front, we strive to employ vocabulary and grammar structures from the textbook, crafting language that reflects the native speaker's sensibilities as authentically as possible. On objective content level, our goal is to recreate the most genuine depiction of Chinese society and lifestyle of its people in the video. Taking the video we just played as an example, we introduced China's shopping festivals, commonly used shopping platforms among Chinese people, and demonstrated how to make online purchases using popular Chinese shopping apps. This PowerPoint page displays the vocabulary and grammar patterns collected from the textbook that we used in creating this video. We aim to ensure that these vocabulary and grammar patterns appear in our video to reinforce students' language input. The purpose of the project is to prepare additional input materials for the textbook currently used by the second-year Chinese class in Columbia's Chinese program. The textbook has a little supplementary input material, except for audio recordings of the texts. As stated in the original grant proposal, we aim to create various types of audiovisual input materials. We have currently selected 5 lessons from the textbook, accounting for 1/3 of the total number of lessons. Additionally, we have produced 5 videos corresponding to each selected lesson. These are the titles of the videos we have made and their corresponding titles in the textbook. As you can see, The titles of the original text and the script we have reworked are not exactly the same, but they are closely related. They are relevant to the topic of the particular chapter of the textbook and reinforce vocabulary or grammar pattern of the chapter. Here is another example. The original text is about Chinese families involving the one-child policy in China. So in contrast, this video we have newly created introduces China's current fertility policy, namely the three-child policy.
你知道这个是什么吗？这个是独生子女证，是政府发给独生子女父母的。因为人口增加，1979年中国开始实行独生子女政策。2011年，中国又实行了两孩政策。由于老人越来越多，新出生的人口越来越少。2021年，中国开始实行三孩政策。
其实我们在北京生活、工作是很辛苦的。现在养孩子那么贵，我大概不敢要3个孩子，压力太大了。而且我是家里的独生女，家里有父母和爷爷奶奶要照顾，每天回家都累得不得了，还要做饭、洗碗，好多家务活要做，没那么多精力在照顾孩子了。
养孩子太麻烦了。 你得整天管他，为他操心，注意力都得放在他的身上。本来现在的生活挺自在的，可是有了孩子就难说了。
我有一个孩子，今年10岁，那还用说吗？当然很幸福，尽管有很多困难，照顾他也挺辛苦的，可是还是觉得很幸福。 至于还要不要第2个，我觉得这个很难说，可能1个，也许2个再说吧。养孩子你也知道，并不轻松。
Here, we would like to express our gratitude to the Language Resource Center for providing us with a green screen and related equipment. We aimed to shoot scenes in China, such as at the entrance of the school. However, since we're all located in the United States, to achieve the seamless integration of people and scenes, we used green screen effects. These allowed us to blend individuals with various backgrounds, creating the illusion that the interviews took place in China. So let's return to the principle of authenticity in language input. The video on online shopping in China is focused on the objective facts aspect of the authenticity principle, while this video on the three-child policy is directed towards both the language usage and objective facts aspects of the authenticity principle. In order to expose students to most vibrant language in authentic contexts, we incorporated street interviews in this video, where interviewees from diverse backgrounds express their views on the three-child policy in the most natural language. Of course, before they respond, we provide them with some vocabulary that students have learned in this lesson to ensure the text is comprehensible. The textbook passages, okay, I'm going to show you another example. The text passage discusses travel experience, while the script we have designed is about a 2-day tour in New York. So please take a moment to watch this short video.
我的好朋友打算周末来纽约2日游，我们打算自己买票，不准备找旅行社。虽然旅行社可以提供各种各样的服务。 门票的价钱也有一些区别，但是不找旅行社的好处是，我们可以根据自己的需求来选择景点，也更自由。我打算花1天时间陪他买东西，再花1天时间陪他参观纽约的景点。我希望他不要把钱花光了。纽约是一个大城市，虽然在海边，也有一个水族馆。 但是最让人喜欢的还是高楼、博物馆和各种各样的文化活动。第一站，自由女神。自由女神是法国人送给美国人的礼物。大多数移民会先来纽约，所以自由女神放在纽约非常合适。她每天都在欢迎不同国家的人来到自由世界。第二站，帝国大厦。坐地铁1号线，在34街下车，然后走到第5大道，就是帝国大厦了。售票处在1层，你可以在网上买票，也可以来了以后买票。因为帝国大厦出现在很多电影中，而且我的朋友喜欢看电影，所以我带他来这里。虽然游客有一点多，可是我们都很高兴。第3站，大都会博物馆。大都会博物馆是美国数1数2的艺术博物馆。在这里，我推荐你去看中国馆。这里有传统的建筑、宋代的书画、汉朝的陶俑、清朝的瓷器。另外，大都会也收藏了不少名画。不过，要尽量避开周末，因为周末是看展览的高峰期，要不然只能看见人而看不见画，就太扫兴了。第4站，中央公园。大都会博物馆的后边就是中央公园了。中央公园是纽约最大的公园，人们在这里跑步、骑车、聚会、看演出。因为公园太大，一天看不完，所以我们可以从公园的东边走到西边，然后再走10分钟就可以来到百老汇大街了。第5站，林肯中心。林肯中心是一个表演艺术中心，在这里你可以看到各种各样的演出，比方说音乐会、歌剧、芭蕾什么的。我打算和朋友商量一下，看看他想看什么。不过，我想他一定会喜欢的。我觉得我们安排的这个纽约2日游特别好，既看了演出，又参观了博物馆，还逛了公园。我的朋友非常高兴，看到我的朋友这么高兴，我也特别高兴。
The reason for filming in New York is because students are familiar with the city. Describing real situations using language learned from textbooks is the first step in stepping out of the textbook and applying language to real life, as language and life are closely intertwined. In the future, if given the opportunity, students may be able to use similar vocabulary to describe other major cities. The language input principles involved in this video mainly focus on authenticity and input enhancement. We incorporated key vocabulary from the textbook into the video to reinforce students' exposure to the language. So, how did we create these videos? In order to provide students with high-quality language input, one principle mentioned by my colleague is comprehensibility. On this page of the PowerPoint, you can see a sample of the text we have written. To ensure everyone can understand, we have translated the Chinese script into English. We rewrite a passage using vocabulary and grammar structures from the textbook, making them with different colors, and add English subtitles in the video to enhance the students' understanding. The purpose of this approach is to encourage students to recycle the language they have just learned, reinforcing their comprehension. Then we transform the written passage into a storyboard. We assign a number to each sentence in the script, with each number corresponding to a shooting scene and technique. The storyboard serves as a reference for us during the filming process. We primarily use Adobe After Effects and iMovie for video editing, and have also purchased assets from Invato, where you can find a variety of video templates. This effort mainly involved script writing, directing, producing, recording, and editing. The video formats vary, including interviews, dialogues, and short skits, etc. Here are several principles we have summarized for video production. In particular, we hope our videos can depict scenarios that students would not be able to personally encounter in the US. For example, the shopping habits of Chinese people, Chinese online shopping tips, etc. In addition to demonstrating nuanced cultural interactions, students watching the videos can also pick up on various dialects, accents, etc. So the principle one, when we write the script, the principles that we followed, I would like to briefly introduce them. The first principle is the video should show the typical context of the grammar structure as much as possible to help students understand the function of grammar structure. Principle two, to achieve the purpose of reviewing, the video should include grammar structures and vocabulary of that week's lesson as much as possible. And principle three, the grammar structures should be as simple as possible. Principle four, the questions should be as open-ended as possible. This is like a reference to the teacher teaching the class. So after watching the video, students may have something to say after they watch this video. Principle five, the videos should depict scenarios that students would not be able to personally encounter in the US. So hopefully one day we go back to Beijing or China, we can shoot some videos in China. Principle six, the video should be as real as possible. For example, the video should have performances involving the linguistic phenomena in Chinese. Yeah, so I think that's for my introduction. I think, Qi Laoshi, do you have something to add?
Ryan, you are muted.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, I think we can leave some of the questions to Q&A, right? But yes. So next, I'd like to talk a little bit about, let me share my screen. Okay. So this is the bulk of our, the most labor-intensive part of our project. So here, sorry, I'm so sorry. Just put it this way. Okay. These are the other types of material that we created as well. So I'd also like to talk a little bit about the 2, 3, and 4. I think the online video, because Ike is an expert on this, I am not, but I can share with you like how I do it. So for example, I'm gonna here I'd like to actually introducing opening some of my other folders, right? So let me see. When we were learning about the bike sharing, that one particular, sorry, the bike sharing, the chapter, I was looking up online and found out that there's one particular video clip called the bicycle highway in Netherlands, which meaning that you can actually travel from one city to another using a specific bike lane for bicycle users. You don't have to drive. So obviously that's a very interesting topic, but the problem again with intermediate, if it's my advanced Chinese learners, then obviously I can just share the video clips with them, right? But then because it is for intermediate learners, I have to kind of trim and also kind of revise some of the part. So I am, again, as I said, I'm not an expert on this. However, if I can do it, then everybody else can do it. I just use a very simple editing tool, which is like comes with the PC, the photo, the video, and then basically just cut and paste and for the part and making sure that eventually when we have a product that is more comprehensible to our learners. So the process itself, it's quite straightforward. I'd like to just basically quickly share with you what it looks like. Sorry, it's this one, right? Oh, sorry. I was just going to pause it a little bit. So obviously this one doesn't really speak the standard language. This one speaks the Chinese with some accent, but we think it's actually a good to bringing the variety to the input. What I did mostly, as I said, is just to cut and trim and then to combine it as one coherent video clip. All right, so you might be wondering, like, how do I ensure the comprehensibility, right? So here I'd like to introduce another type. When we're talking about lesson 5, which is talking about the Chinese families, here is this is the original from Baidu, which is the Chinese equivalent of Google, the original material. I highlighted everything in red. These are mostly incomprehensible to our learners because if we know exactly what they have known, these are probably considered as new vocabulary. So as you can see that it's a very short paragraph. I'm just using this as a demonstration. So you have 42. Basically, I wanted to say how I calculated because Chinese are different than many other languages in terms of that they don't have a clear boundary for vocabulary. What I did is actually just counting the words, counting the characters, and then divided it by the total characters, which I know that initially you might have some doubts about that, but then if you actually calculated most of the length, I'm so sorry about the background noise. The length of the words, it's about 2 characters on average. So this way you can get approximate comprehensibility ratio. So for this one, it's probably going to be incomprehensible because you have more than 10% of the words that are incomprehensible to learners. So obviously what I did is just to ensure that, again, as 5% as a benchmark, to change some of the wording, but in the meantime to making sure it still sounds very natural, sounds like what not oversimplified language. Okay, so this is the second part, is actually the revised part.
All right. Since my colleague mentioned the bike sharing, we have a lesson that is about the bike in China. So we have also created a video about the bike sharing in New York City. So I would like to show this video to you.
今天周末，我不想总是在校园里待着，因为天气特别好，所以我不打算坐地铁，而是想骑自行车转转。说起来，在美国骑自行车锻炼的人不少，不过一般在健身房和公园里比较多。我听说，随着纽约市政府和社会知名人士大力提倡骑行，越来越多的人开始骑自行车上下班。刚来纽约的时候，看着和汽车共享马路的自行车，我还有点担心安全问题。但是后来我发现，很多马路上划出了专门的自行车道，方便了骑车的人。今天我也想试试在纽约骑自行车，不过我不打算专门买一辆自行车，因为好的自行车不便宜，加上也没有地方停放，公寓太小，而且搬上搬下也挺麻烦。纽约的共享单车虽然不是到处都有，但是我们学校附近刚好就有2个点，我早就想试一试了。纽约的共享单车是蓝色的，车身有点重，不知道骑起来感觉怎么样。我研究了一下，共享单车还挺便宜的，比坐地铁划算。 月费只有地铁票的1/10，30分钟只要4美元。如果租24小时，只要15元。如果付年费还能打折。我得先下载一个手机 APP， 开一个账户，然后取车、骑车，最后还车，就是这么简单。学校就在河边，我打算一边骑着车，一边看看河边的风景。我非常推荐，我觉得纽约的共享单车骑着非常舒服，很方便，价格也不贵。没事的时候在大街小巷骑着车转转，又能看风景，又能锻炼身体，一举两得，我觉得特别好。
Right, I'd like to highlight that this is actually the textbook chapter is actually about bicycle culture in China. It's not actually has anything to do with bike sharing, but since bike sharing is a a common current trend, so in major cities, that's why we actually highlight this part in New York City. And I, on the other hand, so Eco created this one, and I found this online video clips about the bicycle highway in Netherlands, and we also have a revised the reading comprehension materials that is actually based on the New York City bike sharing. So why the bike sharing can be very successful in New York City. So this is the original, and then this is the revised version. So as you can see that these materials are in combination, can working together to create an enriched input for our learners. Okay, so I guess we are a couple of minutes early in our presentation, and we want to open the floor for Q&A. Absolutely, absolutely. So here I'd like to give you another sample. Okay, basically our purpose is that Ika and I, we will creating these materials, but how to using these materials is up to our teachers. So for example, teachers sometimes can having some prompt questions before showing these materials, right? So what do you know about New York City bike sharing? Have you tried before? And some kind of like a teasers. And then afterwards, they can actually host discussions in terms of like what's your opinion about it? Do you think it's more convenient than subway and that type of thing? So Ika and I, we give some kind of sample questions, but we do not like mandate that these are the questions you absolutely have to ask. Okay, so that is, we want to keep so our goal is to creating the input material, but not necessarily how to use it. It's actually using these activities up to the individual teachers.
Excellent.
So
I think Juwan has a question.
It was very interesting, although I couldn't understand, I don't understand the language at all, but it was just fascinating. And then, yes, it is a very labor intensive, so I really appreciated it. So Chung already asked the question I was going to ask, because I was going to ask like how you kind of like incorporate these materials into your regular classes. So like I understand you don't really ask all these the teachers to do the same thing, but I'm just curious what you guys actually did, kind of a little bit more in like details in regular classes, because you already have a textbook, right? Yes. And so in relation to that, you guys think that textbooks that you are using is not really maybe problematic? That's why you
no, it's not it's not problematic. I think it's the nature of textbook in foreign language teaching in general. The textbook, basically most of the time, if you actually calculate how much new words are there in each chapter, you're going to see it's definitely more than 5%, which means that the textbook itself are not comprehensible. So you cannot just give it the material to students and then they can understand it. Most likely they have to study the vocabulary. And then, so in that sense, the textbook chapters are actually the carrier, the platform for us to show how the language and how the linguistic features and how the grammar are actually playing out in that context. So what we're creating is supplementary material that hopefully students can actually understand these things without necessarily need to study or study new vocabulary. They will be able to understand it. So that this is kind of like what I call the when the true acquisition will actually jumpstart. I think, what we're doing in classroom is more like learning. It's not necessarily the problem of textbook per se. That is actually the purpose of the textbook, right? Because you have to kind of condense all this information in a kind of a short, in kind of like a in a book, in one book, to condense all that kind of information. What we're saying is that it's just in the foreign language instructional context, it's not enough. It's not enough just to have one textbook for our students. So what we're doing is to providing this additional opportunities for input, for comprehension, for hopefully the acquisition can be facilitated.
Okay, so you guys kind of assign these supplementary materials outside as assignment. I just want to know how you incorporate this into your regularly. Yeah.
So what I did, like some of the material I already started creating before this project started, right? So what I did, for example, is to incorporate it as a classroom activity. But usually it's not happening on day one, right? Well, they haven't learned it. So it's usually towards the end of the chapter when I'm pretty confident that they are okay, at least they're familiar with some of these words, right? And then as a way to kind of like enhancing the fluency, and facilitating of their like further learning of these structures and words. That's what I did. What I envision in the future, for example, when we're talking about like one-child policy, right? I remember, so thanks to Ika, I was trying my hard to find these video clips online that are already there that for students to understand. What I usually found out is, number one, it's too difficult. So they might be interested in the beginning, but soon they lose interest because of the lack of comprehensibility. And it's very difficult to revise, to cut, and to trim. And what I'm trying to say is that I can envision myself down the road to using that particular video clip created by Ika, because now I know for sure that it's comprehensible for the learners. As a way at the very end of it, as additional listening comprehensibility in class. However, I can also easily see that you can use it outside of classroom if you feel like, I don't have enough time to even cover the textbook material. Then you can using that as a way, let's say, okay, as assignment, you can listen to this video clip and then answer these following questions. So our goal is to create a bank, a corpus, if possible, or to inspire all of our co-workers to do that as well, so we can share with each other.
Thank you. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but in relation to what you guys just said, that I am kind of half sold about authentic material part. I'm half sold. I'm not an expert in authenticity in teaching materials, but to me, it's still, you guys created the instructional video to me. So it's more, you guys highlighted the vocab they learned and certain grammar structures. So to me, it's in terms of input, it's a robust, of course, because it's a frequent and consistent, comprehensible, level appropriate that I all understand. But in terms of authentic part, I'm still kind of like not 100% convinced. So I don't think you guys really have to include that authentic input in this part. So that's just my reaction to that authentic part.
Oh, no. We totally understand. We totally understand, because it is actually very difficult, right, to strike the balance, because sometimes you feel like, once you do anything to these things that's no longer authentic, it's kind of like artificial already. So I think there's a nuanced balance there. So we're trying ourselves to, for example, when Ika creating that a 2-day tour, we debated whether we wanted to highlight those vocabulary structure, right? But then given that it's actually facilitative, if you actually have input enhancement, that's considered enhancement, you highlight those things, it's probably going to be facilitative in terms of understanding comprehension, right? But I guess, what we can do is to, next time you can turn off, I guess, that's not technically not difficult. The second time or the third time you're showing that video clip, so you can kind of like to see like how naturally they can process the information. And if you notice that the first video clip Iko showed was quite slow, because that's chapter 3, when our learners just coming from the first year beginners. So we intentionally make it slower so that it can actually be more comprehensible. But that speaks to exactly what Junwan pointed out, that it's probably not that authentic 100% because no one speaks that slow. But as you can see that the later, especially the travel is chapter 11, which is usually the second half of the year. We try to, of course, I voice it over and I try to sound, talking at my normal speed, that sense, so that we're giving it a little bit of flavor of authenticity there. But again, I think that's, Junwan, thank you for pointing out. I want to emphasize that, yes, it's very, very difficult to create these materials for beginners and for intermediate learners, just precisely because, to strike that balance is quite challenging. So I'm not surprised that you're not 100% so, but that's at least it's something that we're striving for in terms of authenticity, as Iko mentioned, the 2 dimensions to it in terms of content, in terms of language.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan. We have, I think, a question to Ike. Ike. How long does it take to make a video like this?
I think if you just do the video, no other work, I would say probably it'll take about 2 weeks or a month to finish a video. Because first of all, you need to write a so-called perfect script. It'll take about several days to write a script to incorporate as the vocabularies and grammar structures as much as possible of that week. And then you need to find a day to shoot the video. When everybody is available, so you shoot the video, and then post-production I think is the most time-consuming part. Yeah, just like you need to write a storyboard, you need to give each sentence a number, and then post-editing. So that is the most time-consuming part.
You got to put in the hours you want to do it well. Thank you. And I think Ling Yan, you have a question too.
Yeah, I do. I really like the video clips you guys made. And also, because the second year textbook is mainly about living in China. So I'm very happy to see that you have recycle the help students to be more, have more experience to review or, what you have learned in a textbook by bring out the real video, like in New York. But yeah, I think as you have said, maybe you are going to do, perhaps do another part when when you have the opportunity to go back to, China. That is more related with the textbook. And also, yeah, just like Chong and John asked, kind of perhaps it's better in the future for you guys to videotape a lot of, some related situation, like actual situation in China. So, but it's pretty good. Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's our next step. If possible, we would, and also again, as I said, this is a corpus, it's a bank, and hopefully we can add more videos to it, right? Sometimes I was actually also thinking that sometimes I do encounter certain TikTok videos or short videos in the Chinese website. And I think, oh, this can actually be very good for our, for the students. Then we can continue to add it to the bank, right? To the corpus, right? Yes, Chris?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for this presentation. I was so impressed by it. And one comment that I have, it's not really a question, but I appreciated that there was well, first of all, when you're a student and you're using a textbook, you get a certain sense of this is so homogenized and it's not really targeted to me. And so incorporating scenes and images from the place where the students live, I think really helps bring an immediacy to their study and an engagement. and it was done at such a professional level. Like like for example, the shot of New York City Harbor, the sort of fast motion time lapse shot was so great. It was stunning. So awesome. And I was just wondering if you do go on to add video clips that are taken in China. My only recommendation might be to keep the ones in New York, because having a continuity between videos in China but also videos of life in New York, I feel like that would give students a sense like, yes, I can be in New York, but yes, I can go and I can be in China and I can speak. There's a continuity between these two experiences. So I thought it was great. Just wanted to say how much I appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I want to echo with Chris just said. It's really, I mean, this is the New York part. I think is wonderful. It's really, definitely a student will feel like, whatever they learn, they can use immediately using the life surrounding them. So to describe the situation in New York with classmates is amazing. And as Ling said, I think the textbook was or is commonly like life in China, I think, arriving in Beijing or things like that. And you giving all these like a New York scenario, I think definitely enrich the overall material and exposure for the students. Also, I mean, the students live here in New York. So my question is, are you going to, are you going to, when this project completed or finished, are you going to share with every instructor in second year class for them to use? Or are you going to make like a even advanced or maybe elementary, both levels, so that student can also, or instructor also access this kind of video bank? I think that would be very useful, given that our textbook is published years ago, and also we definitely think changed, like a one-child policy to three child, right? So now you can kind of get information and video up to date to the textbooks, because no textbook is current after being published. So I think that will be wonderful if you can continue to develop different levels of video material, and eventually I think this can also not only video but also maybe text part being added to it. So
we already have text part added to it. We created two types of text. One is a revised, the articles we got it online, revised it, making sure it's comprehensible and authentic. And another one is we created ourselves. We just basically read the text. So for each of these 5 chapters, there are 4 types of input materials: the original clip, video clip, the revised video clip, and also the original text passage and the revised text passage. So obviously we are going to share, and then in second year intermediate Chinese, we always share everything, including our, online, the PowerPoint presentation or the task-based activities and all those kind of things. So that folder, I think right now we only need to add, 2 more of our coworkers' name to it, and everybody can have access to it. That is our goal, and we do, hopefully down the road, always more cooperation with our RC, we can expand it to the whole textbook. But I think the most important thing is we wanted to kind of pilot to see if it's workable. It's how difficult it is and how time consuming it is. We want to gauge it. We want to see like how feasible it is actually to create all these materials. So it seems to be quite feasible, workable. And then we also want to inspire our coworkers to do this together, right? It's not just me and Ika, and everybody is very creative and original, and that way we can actually make it a more make the enriching, even into the variety of input for our students, for our learners, right?
Thank you. That's wonderful to know.
Yeah, great advice. I think if we have opportunity to go back to China one day, we'll we'll definitely consider taking more photos, take more videos for our textbook.
Yeah, and as you're working on these videos and shooting more of them and editing and developing, and if your colleagues join you in these efforts, then we're happy to put together a database and host it and manage it for you guys too. So could be a follow-up on this project, or could be something that we just do to ensure that all this is available, accessible, and easy to use for the Chinese language program. And on that note, it is 4 o'clock. So I, at this point, would like to thank everyone for coming.